Hello and welcome back to the Folklore Hiking Stick Workshop, and it's a pretty gloomy, horrible day out there. So I'm in the workshop and there's several other reasons I'm in here, but I'll have a little chat with you about that later on. But I'm going to run you through some of the items and products I actually use to make my hiking stick. The consumables in effect really. I'm not going to discuss the sandpapers, I'm not going to discuss the items like the lanyards, the tips, the tacks and things like that. They're separate in my mind, items and possibly videos in their own right. I'm going to discuss my consumables which make the stick look the way it does. A lot of stick makers will hold these items in closely guarded secrets, the hows and the whys and the whats. But for me, if you're willing to invest the time, energy, and unfortunately the money, you will come up with a recipe, a method or a formula which will work for you and your sticks. But that will depend on quite a few things really. The wood that you're using, the actual type of finish you're looking to achieve, and also where you're actually going to be doing it, as in here, for example, this workshop, I do have heating, but that doesn't run all the time. It's prone to moisture and damp from the outside elements coming into, because it's a single skinned building, and it's open through the cat flap and areas at the front, so I can get like a cold, moist atmosphere at times, and that is a big factor that I have to consider when I'm actually working in here. And then in the summertime, the natural things that I could be facing, which itself is quite simply the making of the sticks, the dust and the contaminants in the atmosphere and around me when I'm making the sticks. And indeed, if you've got any creepy crawlies or flies that may be attracted to your finishing products. But we'll have a little chat about that in a minute, but I'll run you through some of the products. I'm not going to go into too much detail about tricks and little secrets and little things I've discovered along the way to enhance or speed up my finishing. That's, yet again, another particular video, but I'll just discuss the actual products. Right then, I'm guessing really pretty much everything you're looking at there is what I use as a product to finish the stick or give it the look I'm actually looking for. So we'll discuss all these items now and how I've arrived at what I'm actually using. This is by no means a definitive array of products, and many other manufacturers will use different products and in different ways. But this is what's working for me and giving me the look I'm after for my brand. Right then, there's one product that isn't there, which I do use when I'm doing my deer antler ones, or I'm attaching a topper or a head to the shaft of my sticks. Quite simply, I haven't done any for a few weeks, so I don't have any in stock. I need to go and get some. And that is a two-part epoxy. Basically, that's how I attach my toppers and antlers to my sticks. So yeah, a two-part epoxy. It's readily available, and I have a particular brand which I do use, which you can, if you care to look back through my back catalogue, you'll find some hiking stick videos based around me putting toppers on or antlers, and you'll see the brand and how I use it. So that being put aside, 98% of my work, or 99 in reality, is one piece hiking sticks. That's my area, that's my field that I actually specialise in. And this will pretty much get me where I need to go. Right then, I'll start with something possibly at the back end of making the stick, and that is washing your brushes. Now I'm using a white spirit, and I find that does a good job of washing the brushes. It dries well afterwards and doesn't leave a residue on the actual bristles, which can then contaminate the product. And why am I saying that is that occasionally when I haven't had this, I've used petrol, and I've washed the brushes out successfully. But when you come to apply your next product, sometimes on the brushes you can feel a residue, possibly a little bit. Oh, it could possibly, I don't know too much about petrol, but it just feels like there's something on the brushes, like possibly a residue. So I prefer not to use petrol. I use this. Obviously, with all petrols, chemicals, paints and substances, one thing I have to say, always read the label, and there'll be the warnings on how to use it and under what circumstances. I should have said that at the beginning, but I'm saying it now, and that applies for everything. But yeah, you will need something to wash your brushes out with, and something that will not leave a residue on the brushes. Sometimes with brushes, once you've washed your brushes out, before you use them, you really ought to get a brush and then just rub all the bristles, so that if you've got any contaminant or any unwashed varnish, for example, on a brush, it will flake off like basically like dandruff, really, and it'll just come out of the bristles, fall off. Give it a quick another bash around and you're good to go. But that covers brushes and washing of brushes for me, myself. Boiled linseed. A lot of customers will ask for just a boiled linseed finish. There's various other linseed finishes or oils that you can use. This is the one I'm using, and it does a reasonable job. The only thing is it's got very, very limited UV protection. So if you're going to have a stick that's left lying around outdoors, for example, it will possibly get sun bleached. This, though, you know, most of us will hike, then wipe our hiking sticks off, put it in a corner indoors, so it's not, UV isn't really a problem. But this gives a very nice finish. It gives a professional finish, if I'm going to use that word. A very silky smooth, and it really brings the grain out. And on top of that, you can feel the wood. That's what people, when they ask for a product where they can actually feel the grain of the wood. And if you're using a varnish type product or paint, in essence, you're covering the wood. You don't get to feel the wood for what the wood actually is. Oils allow you to feel and touch the wood and the grain. But yeah, this provides a good finish, and with this particular colour, it gives a very light honey colour to the wood. So whatever I'm doing with the raw wood, I look at that piece of wood and I have to think to myself, that's going to become a shade 1 or 2 darker. So obviously, if a customer wants a light coloured stick, I've got to pick the very lightest colour wood I've got, because I still have to allow it to jump to the next shade further up. But yeah, good product, and it does a good job protecting the wood. Boiled linseed will need to be reapplied every whipping trip or every few years to give it a good water sealant protection. But yeah, very good. Moving on to varnishes. This is very contentious because, you know, it all comes down to brands and things like that. I have 2 particular brands here. This one's an exterior varnish. It's clear and it's gloss. I always go for gloss because when I'm out at a sale, people like, you know, shiny objects, and a gloss coloured stick really draws their attention in. They've both got good UV protection, and it says so on the tin. But I've discovered, just having 2 different brands, they have very subtle differences in application. And I won't, like I said, I'm not going to go too much into tricks and application methods and things. That's another video. But just for reference, this one here and this Yacht varnish, if it's put on extremely lightly and thinly, it tends to dry, and it can still be a little bit tacky in places. If I put it slightly heavier, only slightly heavier, it will dry hard and firm. On the contrast, this one here, that is completely the opposite with this varnish here. That if I put too much on to start with, it will run and not dry. This needs a really light first coat, and that will go off before I put another coat on. But if I put this too heavy, this just will not dry as well as having a light coat first. So you will have to experiment and find out with various brands and particular manufacturers' products. But you really do need a UV protection in the varnish if it's going to be used in a hiking stick outdoors. The reason I went for the dearer Yacht varnish is because it has all those protection and UV protection, because when I was putting sticks on my outside stall, I could leave them there for weeks on end before they were bought, knowing full well they were protected from the weather, protected from the sun, and they were, you know, if it's good enough to be on a yacht out at sea, a hiking stick in a show cabinet, yeah, it's going to work. So yeah, those products work for me. Right, as you can see, I've got an array of paints. Now, like I said, just read the label. Using spray paint is an art form in itself. It can go extremely well or horribly wrong. And when it goes horribly wrong, you can be sanding and sanding back, or you can probably, on some occasions, if there's deep crevices and knots and cracks, you will not get it out. So it has to be right first time. So yeah, paints, yet again, you will have to find out what paints will work with varnishes. Obviously, paint and boiled linseed ain't going to work together. That's what I'm saying, that you will have to read the labels and discover what works for your own particular style of sticks. But paint for me is always used with a varnish if I'm doing my candy cane model or camo model. Incidentally, I've got one I'll show you in a moment. So yeah, paints. The better quality paint you use, the better the result. That's probably a given, you're probably thinking, but it's very tempting to buy a cheap can of spray and expect a result. This one here is like a craft paint, and it does work, but always be very sparing. Less is more with paint when you're doing crafting. A spray polyurethane finish. This is invaluable if I'm doing touch-ups and on a stick I'm making, and I've had to sand out an area and I don't want to fully do a complete another coat of full varnish. This will touch up small areas, and it doesn't need to be put on where you've got to allow a build up to match in with the surface and then re-sand out. You can just spray this on and it will cover a light coat and allow you to get away with trying to fix or remedy any blemishes on a hiking stick. Yet again, drying times, you have to be aware of that. This particular brand I've got here takes a long time to dry. It says it dries quite quick, but it does actually take a long time. It will work. Yet again, I use this in conjunction with different brands of varnish, and I found one that works with the brands I've got. I'm not stating mixing two different varnishes will work all the time. Yet again, you'll have to find that out, and that's what I keep coming back to, that there is a lot of time, effort and money put into finding what works for you and the brands that you have available to you. Right then, I've got a wood oil and I've done a few sticks with this, and this has got UV protection. I'm not a fan of using this, but yes, it will produce a reasonable stick and quite nice, and it's protected from the weather. It's for garden furniture, so obviously that says enough that it's ideal for a stick that's being used outdoors. It's quite rugged. It's got UV protection. It's food safe. That may be a condition that somebody may come to you and say, you know, I want a slightly more greener product, if I can use that word. It does say that it's low in emissions and volatile organic compounds. I've yet to complete a quest to find a fully environmental product. They may be out there, and I possibly haven't invested enough time in it. But this one here is low odor, food safe, and it gives UV protection. And it does, yet again, this gives the wood a slightly darker tinge when I put it on than what the original wood is. It's not completely clear. But yeah, another product I do use on some sticks that people don't want a varnished look. Right then, moving on to a wood dye. Wood dye. This will give the actual wood some protection. It's good. It really draws the grain out in the wood. It looks nice. I use this when I'm doing my vintage or retro style sticks. I can put this on, distress it, bring it back so it got that oldie world look of a stick that's 100 years old, that's been left in a cupboard, and you know, it's got a real old retro feel. And I use wood dye for that. I do have wood dye in this glass container up there. That's another health and safety no-no. Never put chemicals or substances not in the jar that they came with, because obviously there's no warnings. So that's a big no-no. Don't ever do what I've done there. I only did that because I actually broke the actual jar which the product was in. But yeah, wood dye, that can be an essential. It's not a necessity. And you can get stains, which you can stain your stick, and that be enough for you to go out and use it. I don't do any of my sticks with stains which are the finished item. For me, if I'm staining, it's to give me my retro look, which then has a varnish, clear coat varnish on top. But you can get stains which will allow you to, basically, that will be it for the stick. Right then. Milliput. I use this when I'm doing my toppers, my deer antlers, and I've shown you how I use that. But it's another consideration, and it's what I use to pack out the top bits, polish it up to give it a bone effect, and it seals the top of the antlers. So that's another product that I highly recommend, or a product like it. It's an epoxy putty. It goes hard. You can sand it, and then once you've sanded it, you can then polish it to like a fine porcelain bone finish. This is the ice white version. It does come in other colours if you fancy a bright red or a bright blue topper on your deer antler. But you've got to find what works for you, or what your customers are willing to actually use. Right then, I've got some glue here. PVA sealer. It's not technically a finish, but you may get a knot that is slightly deeper than you really want to leave as a, you know, if it's too deep, obviously you can't use your hiking stick. It's null and void, obviously. But there might be a dip or a crevice that you're looking at it, and aesthetically, you know, it doesn't look pleasing. So you can mix some glue up with a bit of sawdust from you manufacturing that stick, pack it out, sand it out, and it will look pretty nice if you do it correctly. But yet again, that's another video. But yeah, PVA glue is a substance, and I found whatever PVA glue you know, I've used for what I'm actually doing here with my sticks, pretty much does the job. But yeah, that pretty much covers it all, really. I've got some enamel paint here, which occasionally I've put on the copper tips, so I take away the copper look and give it a jet black finish, but that's very rare. Yeah, so some products won't mix and match oil. If you oil a stick, you can't varnish over the top. I've actually tried, I thought to myself years ago I could get away with oiling a stick, sanding it back, thinking the oil would penetrate deep in the wood. The theory was that I would really give this stick ultra protection and then varnish over the top. Well, I've had no real success with that theory and it doesn't work, to be absolutely blatantly honest with you. And if I have got a result at the end of it, the amount of sanding and fiddling and playing about just hasn't yielded the result that I've actually been trying or looking for. But you have to be aware that mixing some paints, varnishes could be dangerous in itself. And like I said, read the tin. And I've had a lot of time to play about and find out what works for me. That's all separate videos, as I keep saying to you, on how and what I do. I'm just showing you the product range I use. And just what you've seen there is probably, with the paints, the varnish, just that very small selection of paints, varnishes, stains, you know, glues, milliput. I've probably just on that table got the best part of about 120 UK pounds just sat there. So that gives you an idea of the level of cost. I grant you, some people will say that's not a lot, but when you're starting out making sticks, that is a lot of money to arrive at a destination where I'm happy using those products to get the look I want. You may spend a lot more trying different varieties of products and indeed scenarios working with that product on your sticks to try and get the results you're after. Now, I was given some advice by another stick maker who I've occasionally been to his workshop and seen some of his beautiful fine, you know, real fine, refined work. And he uses the oil they would use on fine sporting guns, shotgun gun stocks or rifles. I can't remember if it's true oil or tung oil, or I can't remember, so I'm not even going to recommend. But whatever that product was, it was far superior in getting that beautiful, shiny, glidy gloss finish for his items. But that isn't a look that my customers are after. My customers, I found what sells most or the best for me. I do offer the choice of an oil finish or a varnish finish, like I said, and with a range of different styles of finish, even with those products. And yeah, again, that's a different video. But yeah, so there you go. There's the products I use. I'll just show you a couple sticks I've got here. The only 2 sticks I've got left at the moment. So yeah, well, I'm doing a craft fair at the moment, or I've got sticks at a craft fair, and all my stock is there at the moment. I've got the best part of 30 pieces there, and my rack holds about 30. I've only got 2 left, and one of them is the Bushwhacker model, which I'm putting online today, and the other one is a custom order that's going off to the Scottish Highlands for a gentleman that's a fisherman, obviously. And yeah, so I'm going to be wrapping that and taking it to the post office pretty much after I've finished here. So there we go. These are the only 2. As you can see, my rack there, I can get 30 sticks there. Totally gone. They're over the sale. But I'll just bring it down and you can see them there. And I'll just pull that custom one out so you can have a look at the finish. Well, there you go. This is it. And this is basically a polished, varnished hiking stick. And like I said, you can get a raft of different finishes using the same particular, well, product. Now, this one here, if you have a look, I've got a trout, a rainbow trout there. That's what he wanted, because he's obviously a fisherman in the Scottish Highlands. Obviously my logo, but it's the camo version that I do. Bring you down there. And as you can see, it's a very nice looking stick. It's got a peaked handle. And it's a nice size stick. You know, it's something that's going to be really sturdy. You know, because obviously if he's in the Scottish Highlands, he's going to be using this in some serious terrain. But getting back to finish, you can see this has a real mirrored finish to it. And that's what I call like a polished finish. Now, that requires a lot of work, and I'll do a video on how I achieve this particular look. But yeah, a nice fine stick here, and yeah, it should serve him extremely well up there in the Scottish Highlands. I've done quite a few trouts for people up that way, actually. So basically, I'll show you some pictures of the sale that I'm actually at the moment, or my particular hiking sticks I've crafted are at the sale at the moment. Now, it was a 9-day sale. I thought it was a 3-day sale, so I got caught on the hop there, so everything's literally gone up to that particular sale. I'm now in the workshop and I've got to start crafting, but I've got to get that hiking stick to the post office, get that on its way to Scotland, and I'm actually out in this part of the workshop and I'm just actually sorting out sticks. Right then, I've got some 4 pieces cut to length and ready to straighten there. And I'm working through this particular batch here. There's probably just over 100 there. I've got to get through that. I've got another bundle to come in, which will take me to Christmas. But yeah, I've got to go through that, select some, and get some ready for straightening and put here and get straightening. But it's how I straighten. Now, I've said it before, I prefer to actually straighten using the steam method, but I'll bring you down. You can see there's too much wind. It's raining periodically. Until I've got rid of the wind and rain, I can't really use the fire pit. I've also got to empty and clear this out before I can do any steam straightening. And I've got to get rid of all our oak trees there. So that's got to be done today. So I'm ready to go for when there is some good weather. But up until then, I think it will be the heat gun method. Well, I hope you kind of enjoyed a little look around the workshop, what I'm doing here at the moment, along with some of the products I use. I know it's a little bit random and hit and miss, and you may have wanted to see me explain how I use them, but that's for future videos. I've just shown you the products that I use. But at the end of this video, I'll put some footage of the craft fair that we're actually at now, and our hiking sticks are there on display and being sold. Like I said, it's a 9-day event, so it's a big one for us. And it's one we can take our product on its stand and leave there for 9 days. The event holders get a percentage of the sales. We get the rest. But the good thing for us, we don't have to be there. It's being run by somebody else. So, and I've got my fingers crossed that we have a successful 9 days. It'd be nice if I don't have to go and pick too many sticks up to bring back, if at all any. So yeah, I've got my fingers crossed on that. And yeah, I'm going to wrap this video up now. This is Andy from Folklore Hiking Sticks. Stay safe, and I hope to catch you guys out on the trail.
Very welcome. That's fine. It's good to have your number. Because I just don't have the Elaine's number. I've no phone number, so I'll do the emails, what I've done, and that's it. So.
Yeah, I was out and another text come through. I was like, what?
Yeah, I can imagine it's not.
Shut up massively. But I was telling him, he was like, oh, you double check.